Okay, here's going to be your quick overview for the next lesson that is going to be focused on compositions and pre-comps. We're going to be making portals, so I did ask that you film 2 B-roll footages to be used, and then I provided you a third file called Sparkle for resources. So we're going to go ahead and start with a new composition. I'll just name it Portal 1 because we're going to have a lot of compositions, and I'm just going to keep naming them Portal 1, 2, 3. Your duration, I'm going to put mine at about 10 seconds. Hopefully that's enough, but we can adjust it later. So I'm going to say OK there. I now have a composition. And so I can either right click and import a file, or I could just drag in the Sparkle file. Alright, and then down here I'm going to go ahead and drag my Sparkle down here. And I don't want to play it, I don't really want to hear it, but that's what the Sparkle looks like. It does have some sound as well, but not worried about that right now. So there's our Sparkle video that we're going to use to build the portals out of. So the first thing you're going to do is we're going to make a bunch of copies of this Sparkle. I'm going to tell you to have 8 copies of it. But before I get started, you'll notice with videos that there's usually a black background that it automatically drops in there. Unlike a PNG file, which can have no background, videos will always have something, so even if it's black. So we don't want the black background, so what we need to do is check our blending modes and make sure that the blending mode is set so that the black background is actually turned off. So down here in these little tools, if you don't have blending mode, just in this little bar, right click and go to columns and turn on modes. And now I can change this over to lighten. You can't see it yet, but lighten means that the black background is now gone. Now remember, it always has to be in lighten or it's going to cover up the other videos. So I changed the mode to lighten. There's my Sparkle, and now I'm going to make 7 copies. So to make a copy, you can Control D for duplicate. And now I've got 8 of them. And what am I going to do with those 8? I am going to move them to create a single line of sparkles going across my screen. And all I'm doing is clicking and dragging them to create a very full portal sparkle. It doesn't matter the order. You just want it to go kind of across the bottom. Oops, I apologize. There we go. Let me drag that last one down here. So I've got a nice built-in line of sparkles. So even when I play them, they kind of play in one line like that. Now, if you'll notice, all the modes are lightened. I've got 8 of them. What am I going to do with those? We're going to have a lot of layers, and so what we don't want to do is get lost with too many layers. So we're going to do something called pre-comping. Pre-comping allows you to put them all together into one layer without actually losing the original layers. So what I can do is highlight these 8 layers I made, right-click, and then just go to Pre-compose. Pre-compose, I'm going to go ahead and name this Portal 2 so I don't lose myself. Go right there. So what you'll see is I have a new comp, a second composition, and this composition is now 1 layer, but it's all of my 8 videos that I copied. And if I double-click it, I get to go back into my original setup if I need it. But for now, I'm happy that I pre-comped it. And in that pre-comp, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my mode is always set to lighten so I don't lose that. And now I've got this portal right here, well, the beginning of a portal, that plays in a straight line. Now we're going to drag an effect across to make this into the shape of a portal, which is obviously more like a circle. So there's an effect on the right side that's called polar coordinates. Oops, I got to spell right. Polar coordinates. I'm going to drag polar coordinates onto this pre-composition, and there's only 2 settings up here, the interpolation and the type of conversion. So we're going to change from polar to rectangular. We're going to come up to rectangular to polar and increase this to 100%. And now we have a circle, I guess, portal. It's getting there. So we've got this circle that spins. Now as you see, a couple things that we don't like. One is, to me, it's not really full enough. Okay, so it's getting there. But then 2, this line where it matches is a little bit of a problem. I can see it, and I don't want to see it. And so we're going to do a couple little tricks to get rid of that line right there. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to make, with this Portal 2, I'm going to duplicate this composition twice. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to rotate it next. So right here, just Control D twice. So I've got 3 of them. They're still all in mode of lighten. except now I'm going to rotate them so that they kind of cover up that bad line that's there. So if you open up this little drop down, you actually get into the specific keyframing of your layers. Keyframing allows you to change things either throughout the duration or at certain points. All we're going to do is rotate this right now. So under transform, I have a rotation. I'm going to rotate this to the right or clockwise about, let's say, 120 degrees, about a third of it. And then my second portal, and it doesn't matter which ones as long as you do it to 2 of them, I'm going to rotate counterclockwise 120, just so you can kind of see. It doesn't have to be exact. And so now when I hit play, that line right there is less visible. And I've got more sparkle, so my portal is a little more intense than what it was. Alright? And so now I have those. I'm happy. I still don't want a lot of layers. So what I'm going to do is take all 3 of these portals, and I'm going to right click and pre-comp and call this my portal 3. This is going to be the portal that I'm going to use with my video. I'm not quite there yet, but it's what I'm going to use. And then I want to make sure that it's on lighten. Alright, and we got a couple little tricks that we're going to do still. Okay, one other trick that we're going to use just to maybe make it look a little better is I'm going to add in something called an echo, which you'll see as we drop it onto the portal. Kind of makes it really intense, and you can increase the echoes, okay, if you want your portal to really look like a fire ring, or if you just want a little bit more intensity, you know, like a 2. Now it looks, you know, pretty intense, like there's a portal. Alright, so we just added on there. And then if you wanted to, I had some students before ask about color changing. If you go type in a hue and saturation and drag that over, you can mess with the master hue and get a little bit different color. I am not picky on the color. If you want a specific color, fantastic. If you want to just leave it as it is, that's fine. I just wanted to show you that. Alright, so next, there's our portal. Okay, we can manipulate it still by changing the scaling if you wanted the portal to grow, or if you wanted it to just, you know, magically appear, and we'll do that here at the end of the video. But what we're going to go ahead and do right now is bring in the video clips that I asked you to record. So I've got a video I'm going to drag in called Portal 1 and Portal 2. And since I'm out of school, my first video is the hallway, and my second video are people outside walking. It does not matter the order that you put them in, but what I'm going to do is drag them down here below the portal. There's Portal 1, and I'm going to drag below Portal 2. Now, it doesn't matter the order. It's up to you. Which one do you want to be your main video versus the one that you want to be inside of the portal. So all we want to do is pin out and mask out this circle so that only what we see inside of it is what's showing in the portal. So to pin it out, and like I said, it doesn't matter. My top one is outside, so if I pin this layer, it's going to just show what's inside of here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay on Portal 2 for me. I'm going to come up here to the top to the pin tool. Alright, make sure you're on the layer. And I'm just going to, in the middle of the sparkles, just kind of pin my way around this portal. It does not have to be exact. You don't need to click 500 times. I'm going to show you in a little bit how to smooth out these curves so that it's not so choppy. But we're just going to click our way around until we get, and then you close it by getting back to the beginning, and you'll see that it automatically cuts it. So now I've got 2 videos playing. Alright, let me just get off of that pin tool so you don't see it. Alright, oops, that's not what I wanted. Nope, close that out. And as I play it, let me just get off of that layer. You can kind of see the portal plays, and inside the portal you see outside, but we are inside the hallway. So to smooth that out a little bit, just to make sure like you don't see the edge line, if you come up to the layer that you just put the mask on with the pin tool, and you open up the mask layer, there's a feather. If you increase, and just so, let me turn this off so you can see it. We turn off portal real quick. Oops, wrong one, that was the sound. You can see how the line's very choppy. If I increase the mask feather a little bit, it just gives a little more fade, so it's not such a hard line, and then I can turn this back on. And right next to it is the sound, so if you don't want to hear the sound of the sparkle, you don't have to. Alright, so this is essentially the basis of the portal. Now, a little more extra creativity is to make the portal kind of appear magically. So if you want to just see the main shot and then have the portal pop up, you can either make it grow or you can just kind of fade it in. So I'll show you one of those real quick. So let's say this is my portal layer and this is my portal. So this is my main one. I don't want to, there's my main screen. So I'll just say maybe about, I don't know, I'll keep the video short. About a second in, I'm going to go ahead and come down here to my portal. I'll come to my portal first. I'm going to turn it on. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to come to the beginning and I'm going to drop under my transform and change my opacity to 0. So I don't see it yet. So it's turned off. And then at frame 1, I'm going to, let me come back to frame 0. I'm going to stopwatch to set a keyframe, come over about a second, and increase it to 100. And so now I've got a fade-in portal versus it just appearing. All right. And then if you want it to just appear that way, you can come down to your portal also that you masked out. Come over to transform at the beginning, select your opacity stopwatch, drop it to 0. And then at frame 1, you can increase it to 100. So now you've got this. Now all of a sudden someone's walking and it just appears like magic. Now, if you don't want it to just appear, maybe you want it to grow. I'm going to delete those keyframes and show you that way. So at frame 0, let's say we're going to click on our scale and put it at 0. So it's not there. And then at frame 1, come over and crank that back up to 100. And so now what I get is it's growing. Okay? My opacity is still 0. So let me change that back to 100. So now I get this portal that appears. Bang. Okay? Now to match the video with it, same thing. Come down here, make sure my opacity is back up. Turn on my scale, make that 0. And then at the next frame, I want to scale it back to 100. And so now they kind of grow together. Okay? So like that portal starts to appear with the video. Alright, so I hit play and it's whoosh. Okay, so it grows. And then we'll say I'll leave it there for 2 seconds. And then right here at this keyframe, I'm going to set another keyframe there. Boop, so I have one, set one there. And then about a second later, I'm going to drop down those scales back to 0 and back to 0 so they disappear. So now I've got a portal that shows up, spins for a second, and disappears. Okay, so that's really all it is. So the purpose of this is something to pick up on is the importance of pre-composition. So if you have a lot of layers, you can put them all together so you don't have so many layers that you've got to mess with. And then also down here, keyframing. Okay, keyframes, you could just click the stopwatch to set one, and you can either scale it in or you can use opacity to fade it in. And so we'll be doing a lot more keyframe work on the next project. This is just the basic. And then look, I've got 10 seconds. I don't want to export 10 seconds. So I'm going to come to my original comp, and mine can be done in about 5 seconds. So I'm going to change this to 5. Say OK. Now I've got a 5-second composition, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it goes away. And there's my video clip. All right. So at this point, I'm done. So I can file, export, and add to render queue. Only thing you got to change is where it's going. So you just click the path that you want it to go, hit save, and hit render and render it out, and your project's complete. So if you got any questions, email me. So you just need your 2 B-roll footages and my resource file, Sparkle.